Remove your scraps, remove your wood. Clean up after yourself. And you have a square piece of wood. When you're done with this, after the planer, joiner, table saw, radial arm saw, you should have a square piece of wood go in your project. Radial arm saw is used primarily for cross cutting. We never use it for cutting with the grain. We have table saw to do that. We have a panel saw to cut large pieces of plywood. Our radial arm saws are used to cut across the grain. The longest part of the rectangle goes up against the fence. Same with the table saw. The longest part of the rectangle goes up against the fence. Same here. Would it be safe to cut this way? No way. There's no way that that is safe. The other reason why we don't do any cutting with the grain or ripping on here is because this tool has a blade specifically designed for cutting across the grain. Specially designed. It will lock up if you cut with the grain. It's not set up to do that operation. Extremely important to remember that. Obviously, we keep our hands out of the line of the saw blade. Remember our yellow zone here? Even if this saw only comes out here, still not a good idea to ever have any part of your body, especially your hands, in line with the blade. There have been a lot of accidents where people tried to do things this radial arm saw is not set up to do. They've tried to make cuts like this. Just in a hurry, didn't have a table saw, whatever. Tried to make a cut like that. Always the longest part up against the fence. Any other questions about the radial arm saw?
What if you have a piece of wood that's like perfectly square? It's like pretty small that you'd have to like.
If you have a perfect square,
yeah, it's like only like 5 by 5.
5 by 5.
Yeah.
Can you cut it on the radial arm saw?
Yep.
Long as it's got enough support on the fence. If it's perfectly square, it's only cutting as far as it is wide. So it still has enough support. If you have any questions about small pieces, obviously are dangerous. We may take a small piece, temporarily glue it to another piece, and then cut it. That's the safest way. With moldings, when I'm doing moldings for houses, above kitchen cabinets or down on the floors, I always cut the small pieces out of a large piece. If I make the cut wrong and the piece is too small or too big, do I take that small piece and try to trim it on the radial arm saw? Never. I'll just cut another one. Most of the time moldings are about $1 to $2 a linear foot. So if I make a mistake and cut a little piece too long, is it worth me taking that 10-cent piece and sticking it with my fingers super close to the blade up against the fence and trying to cut it? No way. Not worth it. So small pieces are usually cut out of large ones, or we'll have to glue it to another piece and then make the cut. And you can temporarily glue things. I'll show you how to do that. But we just never get our hands within the yellow and never get a piece that's small that could go into the blade. Sometimes the scrap even the scrap on the table can get caught up with the blade if your scrap piece is on the side with a stop block. So we've got to be careful that we're not binding up the blade. Scrap pieces should always be falling off where there's nothing holding it up against the fence tight.